Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Between the Ropes TV. As always, I'm joined by Josh and Ben, and today we're going to be doing a reaction rather to the Manny Pacquiao fight last night, including a short discussion around the undercard fights as well. Josh, I'm going to throw it straight over to you to talk about a couple of the undercard fights because I know you have a few things to discuss. Obviously, the fighter that's described as the next Manny Pacquiao was also fighting, which is interesting. What did you make of his fight and also the other undercards?
Yeah, well, Mark Magsayo, I mean, it started very well. WBC featherweight title eliminator. Against Seja, it was a step up for him, obviously. But he started well, scored the knockdown very quickly in the first round. And I mean, Adam Smith and Matt Macklin were getting very excited, like, oh, we could be seeing something special here. And then, to be honest, Seja recovered as the fight sort of went on. I'll be honest, I probably had Seja winning more of the rounds. I thought, you could see the step up, and sometimes it takes a prospect a few rounds to sort of feel them out. And then I've got to be honest, it sort of came out of nowhere at the start of the 10th round. Magsayo it was a brutal knockout. I mean, to both of you guys, if you haven't seen it, check it out. And to everybody watching this, it was an absolutely clinical finish. I mean, he was celebrating, got told to sort of calm down because it was like, hang on, he might not be okay here. It really was a brutal knockout. So, we'll get on to Manny Pacquiao, but as one Filipino star possibly at the end, we might have just seen another one born. So I was absolutely thrilled with his performance, to be honest. It was a great knockout, it really was.
Josh, how excited are you for him? Are you buying into the hype around him, or how far do you think he can go? As obviously, as you said, it looked that he could have possibly been down in points before that brutal knockout. So, is there a bit too much of a buzz around him, or do you think he can go all the way?
No, if to be honest, if anything, taking the whole fight into account, I'm more excited about him because of it. Because in the first round, I think you thought, oh, we'll just knock him out, and you often don't learn that much from that sort of a fight, do you? Because he's just come in, took him out. I mean, I know me and Ben have spoke about this before. You don't actually learn too much, but because he then had to get behind his jab and try and box a bit off the back foot as the pressure came, that would have been a brilliant learning fight for him. And then he showed the character and grit to dig in and get the knockout. So, I mean, he's in a stacked, you go featherweight, super featherweight, lightweight. We all know how that's a stacked sort of range of divisions, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
But, there's big fights there for him. And I'm excited to see what next. I really am.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll move on to the, I guess, the main undercard. Obviously, Victor Ortiz lost last night. I think boxing fans are probably quite happy about that, considering his, let's say, let's just skip over his,
expressions,
shall we say. But Ben, were you happy to see him pick up the loss?
I can't say it bothered me too much. Win or lose, it's not a fight I really.
No, I'm not having this. Right,
it's not a fight I'm not bothered about today. Like Josh has said previously, 2013, yeah. But again, when it's too late.
No.
Then, Josh, people can go against your opinion. Did you not know this?
Scott, you need to keep control of him. This is getting ridiculous. I'm not ignore them. 2013 me, as I've been saying to these boys all week, was very excited for this fight.
I mean, it was one of those cards, weren't it? But if it was 2013, we might have been excited about a couple of the fighters, but we'll speak about that a moment later.
Well, I was excited. But no, so obviously Victor Ortiz, Robert Guerrero, both having spells of inactivity. In fairness, Victor Ortiz, probably his own fault. We'll leave it there. And then obviously with Robert Guerrero, he's 38 now, and I think the common theme of what I was reading and sort of what I thought myself was it was a fight for either one of them to show they've got a little bit left. And I'm not necessarily saying they're going to go and win a world title, particularly at welterweight, but they've definitely got a few more high-profile fights in them, shall we say. I mean, the first round was really even, sort of quite tentative. I think it was sort of typical of that sort of fight. You could see neither one wanted to sort of commit because obviously really the loser, it's the end of the road. But, you know, the majority of the fight was fought toe-to-toe. I mean, Victor Ortiz was trying to smother his shots, staying on Guerrero's forehead. Then he was trying to go to the body. And the first 6 rounds, I was thoroughly entertained, genuinely. I thought it was quite good. So at the end of the 6th, it was almost like Ortiz. I mean, he had Freddie Roach in his corner, which obviously is a good sign. But it was almost like Ortiz sort of ran out of energy to a point. He was looking to clinch more as the fight wore on.
He looked old.
Well, in fairness, he's only 34, but you have to question these spells of inactivity. They take a toll, don't they? You've got to stay in fighting shape, if you like, to do your 10, 12 round distances. And I think in the end, Guerrero rightly won, but it was just the work rate. As Ortiz tired, Guerrero kept his work rate up.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's one of those with Ortiz that his head wasn't fully in the game, you could say, due to circumstances we won't talk about. But,
I mean, you predicted these, Scott.
I did.
You said Ortiz would lose.
I did. I said he'd lose, didn't I? But Ben, did you? I suppose the question is to ask: did you know, just on your thoughts, did you make it a defeat? Did you think it was a fair decision?
Yeah, I think it went the right way. And to be honest, I was watching that, but I kept looking forward to the Pacquiao fight more so because, unlike Josh, it wasn't for me. But I wasn't really into those guys back in 2013 either. So,
but you just be careful. Stop them.
Yeah, I was too busy out having a life when I was a kid, unlike Josh.
That's not true, Ben. You were doing special things with your special sock, weren't you? That's what you were doing in 2013.
No comment.
No comment. Right, on to the Manny Pacquiao fight. Gents, before I throw it over to you, I want to share a couple of my thoughts. Manny Pacquiao, retire. Just retire. What are you doing to yourself? You don't need the money. You're ruining your legacy. You're losing to people 5 years ago you would have made an example of. In fact, if you need the money that bad, why not just fight Mayweather in an exhibition? You'll probably make £500 million just off doing that. Just retire. You're destroying your legacy. You look old. You look defeated. Give it up. Just give it up. You're done. You look nowhere near your best. You got defeated. As I say, 5 years ago, you do not lose this fight. From someone that's a massive fan of you, Manny Pacquiao, if you're watching this, just retire, please. Just retire. Anyway,
to be fair, I imagine Manny Pacquiao is sat there waiting for us to put this on.
Josh, you're a massive Manny Pacquiao fan. Do you agree with my statement there?
Right, well, I think all things we'll get onto your statement. First, let Ben talk us through the actual fight. Let's try and keep this fat face as opposed to Scott just... I mean, I want to say racism.
My whole view of this fight is retire. That's it.
Well, in the first round,
are you still fighting? You don't need to fight Pacquiao. You're losing your legacy. You're getting beaten by someone that you probably would have absolutely spanked 5 years ago.
Scott. He had a great amateur career. Some people say he beat Porter, who went on after that fight to lose to Errol Spence. Ugas isn't a nobody, though. That is the thing.
He's not a nobody, but he still would have beat him in his prime. He looks some like old beaten bum that's still trying to fight because he needs the cash, and we know he doesn't need the cash. So what's he fighting for?
He lost to Jeff Horn a few years ago, which is one everyone said he should have won. And I just think, I think that's the thing.
He should have retired at that point. Okay, he's come back and he's won titles.
In a way.
He's beat Thurman. Those are, particularly Keith Thurman. Not many people thought, at the time, Keith Thurman was a little bit of a boogeyman of the welterweight division. And Pacquiao beat him well, to be fair.
Well, knocked him down the first round, didn't he?
Well, exactly, yeah, and controlled a lot, like large portions of the fight. So, Ben, give us a breakdown.
Right.
And then I'm going to absolutely 2-foot Scott.
I'm glad I'm sat at home. No. This is why I can be so confident over the screen.
Round one, I did think Pacquiao, he came out strong. He looked really hungry for it and he was using his speed. And there was a few times He stepped forward, he unloaded a few shots, and as Ugas tried to counter him, he just took one step either back or to the side, and he was making Ugas miss. And that first round, I was really impressed with him, and I thought, right, if he can keep it up, which is hard to do, if he can keep it up, he's really going to be in it. But I thought Pacquiao was going to win. But then after that, it was like, where in the first round he was stepping in, this time Ugas, he was timing it right. And Pacquiao was stepping in to unload, and Ugas he was catching him on the jab, and he was timing his shots perfectly. I think Ugas just fought the perfect game plan. He controlled the centre of the ring. He let Pacquiao do all the work, and because of the reach, he kept making Pacquiao step in, and when he did, he'd either do a straight right or he'd just do a little hook with the right, and he was catching him. And then every time he was doing that, Pacquiao was taking that step back, regrouping, and he was going again. Like, Pacquiao proved he's got that energy to do 12 rounds, because he did the 12 rounds and he was still in the fight at the end. But it was the game plan. He wasn't outworked because he did work a lot harder. He threw a lot more punches and nearly double the punches I think he threw. And it was just like, Ugas he was on the money. And I think Pacquiao had a lucky escape in the sense of, if Errol Spence was in that ring and not Ugas, then it could have been, I hate to say it, but it might have been embarrassing for Pacquiao, because Errol Spence is a step up. He's a top operator. So Ugas is a good boxer and he proved it, but he's not Errol Spence.
Well, let me ask you this then, Ben. Does Spence embarrass Pacquiao in his prime?
I don't think he does in the prime, but it's one of those things, isn't it, where it's hard to talk hypothetical like that, because
that's what I'm saying. Just retire. I know I'm not going to say much more about, but other than please just retire. I mean, all he's going to be remembered for at this rate is the bloke that could have beaten Mr. Money Mayweather and then didn't.
No.
But do you not think that he's still...
I love triggering Josh. He's a man that should have beat the Money Man but couldn't, and meant that Mayweather was still retired 50-0.
See, for me, I do think that whatever happened in the Errol Spence fight, I do think Pacquiao should have gone. And if he'd beat Spence, I don't think he ever would have got the Crawford fight. So I think that would have been it's a great way to go out. If he'd lost to Spence, I do think it would have been, right, where's he going from now? But like I say, it wasn't a bad performance by Pacquiao. It's not like he went in and he didn't turn up. He threw loads into it and he's proved he's still fit enough. Yeah. I think if they say there's a rematch, it's not guaranteed that Ugas would win the rematch. And I think that's why, to me, with Pacquiao retiring, I see why he wouldn't want to, because you say he doesn't need the money, but he doesn't. He's one of these boxers who loves to fight. He does it for boxing.
That's why I don't get it. He doesn't need, he loves to fight. Well, what's the point in loving the fight if you're just going to get beaten by people that you would have beaten 5 years ago?
But he didn't get wiped all over the floor, Scott. That's the thing. He was in the fight.
Is anyone going to remember that? They're just going to look at the fact he lost.
No, not proper boxing fan, Scott.
I'm going to jump in here.
It's like a 100-meter sprint. You might have finished 0.1 of a second behind the person that finished first. You're still going to just go, in 2 years' time, that's the bloke that finished second.
I would agree with that.
Josh, I know you've got an awful lot to react to there. You've got an awful lot to react to about my reaction to it, the fight itself. So I'll just give you the floor.
Right, so obviously, Ugas, I thought it was his jab that won in the fight. I've got to be honest. He was jabbing well to the body, switching back to the head. And it caused Manny Pacquiao, he's never been the biggest welterweight, so it obviously was going to cause him problems. Pacquiao, I think he showed, the fifth round, I was impressed with him. I think he definitely won that round, and we saw definite flashes of what he used to do. And I think, what we're seeing here is 763 days out the ring since he shot the world and beat Keith Thurman. No one thought he'd do that, but he did it. 763 days out the ring is a long time at any point in your career, never mind at the wrong side of 40. I think then obviously he's had a camp. He's juggling it with his duties in the Philippines.
Retire.
In terms of politics. So, he's definitely his attention's split. And, if you saw PBC's All Access show before it, you could see in the middle of camp, he was having to go and do Zoom calls, and he was trying to stay on top of both. As for the fight itself, I think what we saw was just an aging fighter who, No, well, yeah, but I'm getting to it. Matt Macklin hit the nail on the head.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, you're being rude. I was accused of a few things, but off camera. So Matt Macklin hit the nail on the head. Manny Pacquiao has always been a fighter that if he couldn't outthink his opponent, he could outwork his opponent and overwhelm them. And he couldn't do that last night. He's shown it in flashes, but the variety of angles that he's always come in at to score his knockouts, to score his success in fights, he was slower getting there. And then couple that with a brilliant game plan, as Ben said, off Ismail Salas, who's a fantastic tactical trainer. He just got trapped behind Ugas's jab, and it made life hard work. He did the 12 rounds. You could see he'd obviously been in a fight. He marked up around the eyes and stuff. But by no means did he take a pasting. And Ugas is a world-level operator. He lost a very close decision to Sean Porter. Many people thought he should have won it. And, Pacquiao, he had a point to prove last night. The WBA, they've been controversial as hell recently. Stripped him of his super title and gave it to Ugas, even though you've got the likes of Leo Santa Cruz at 126, who's not fought in much longer than Manny Pacquiao, yet he gets to keep his belt. And how the WBA, and I pre-planned this, I wanted to say this, how they can disrespect an 8th division world champion like that is disgusting. I mean, I know obviously a bit of it's tongue-in-cheek what you're saying, Scott. I do think Pacquiao should retire now. I get he doesn't need the money, but at the same time, he probably does because he's got a massive entourage, which is very, very well documented, how he looks after everybody. He gives a lot of money into the Philippines.
Respect for that, respect.
Yeah, he's a massive humanitarian, and that sort of thing's not cheap, is it? Let's be honest. He's got a big family, so I don't blame him for fighting for the cash, and he loves a fight. So I don't blame him for carrying on to this point. I do think it's time now. I agree with what Ben said. I'm glad it wasn't Spence in the ring with him because I do think that could have gone wrong. And, the last thing you want to see is a legend like Manny Pacquiao, his last fight, face down in the canvas.
Embarrassed.
Yeah. So, he went out on his shield of sorts and he can go out with his head held high. I mean, I've watched a lot of his career. I'm a big Pacquiao fan, and Freddie Roach has regularly said in interviews when Manny says, "When shall I retire?" Freddie Roach says, "I'll tell you when you can't go, like at this level." I do think Freddie Roach needs to probably have that conversation with him now. It's very well documented. It's like a father-son relationship that they've got at the wild card. And sadly, I think it's another one of those, isn't it? Father times undefeated. And I know that's said a lot this week. And he's just reached the natural end. But, I mean, what a legend Manny Pacquiao is. 8 division world champion. Been a world champion in 4 different decades. I know you can always argue timing's brilliant because obviously he came in at the end of one and we're at the right start of this decade. But to have done that to be a world champion at all is what most boxers strive for.
That's it.
He's been over 4 decades. The man's an absolute legend.
Agreed.
I've got nothing to say. I think he's a beast and well done, and thanks for all the memories. Apart from when he knocked Ricky Hatton out, that upset me.
Also, one thing as well, though, you're going about how many days he was out the ring. But the one thing you didn't pick up on either is the fact it was a change of opponent. I know it was for Ugas as well, but your training change as well. So I still think it's not like just, okay, who's next? I think there's more.
There's an element after 71 pro fights, and he's been touted to fight Ugas for a couple of years with the WBA situation. I don't think it's as big as, for instance, when Joshua had Ruiz. Do you know what I mean? It's not still a big man, still a man who's going to use his jab. I do think there'd have been quite a few transferable skills out of the game plan. Do you know what I mean? It's a similar build. And don't forget, Pacquiao fighting at welterweight, he's come through 8 divisions, so he's always going to be the smaller man, really, at welterweight. So his game, that's why it's so crucial that he always had his speed because he needs to overwhelm his opponents because he's not going to outstrength them. He's not going to outpower them. I know obviously he's got that vicious knockout power, but when some fighters throw a jab and you can see the fighters felt, you're not really going to get that off Pacquiao, particularly as he's getting older. So it's just a great shame, and I am gutted, but all you can say is sort of thanks for the memories, really.
Yeah, definitely. Ben, just to finish, just quickly, are you also of the opinion that this should be his last rodeo, so to speak, and he should retire?
I do think it's the right time for him now. I think his aim was the big fight, and I don't think he's going to get... Well, I think he'd still get the Errol Spence fight. I still think Spence will be up for it. I think more so after this.
He gets the tickets then, doesn't it? That's
it's one of those things. No matter which Pacquiao you fight, if you can get his name on your record. So I still think Spence would take it, but I just think
I agree it wouldn't have the same credibility, but I think it's more the fact it would sell the tickets. It would sell the tickets.
It's definitely a ticket seller, but I actually disagree now. I think if you're Errol Spence, there's been much made of his struggles to do welterweight now. He's a big guy at welterweight. If I was going to boil myself down to 147, if I'm Errol Spence, he's going to get slagged off for fighting Manny Pacquiao now, let's be honest, because Ugas has just beat him. He's not bringing a world title to it. Other than the legendary name, but all people will say is, "Oh, you beat him past his best," and past his best, you'd argue. So, if I'm Spence now, the only fights I'm interested in at welterweight is Ugas for the WBA and Crawford for the WBO. And after that, if I was him, he's 31, coming 32, I think himself. I think he'll be looking to jump up to 154. He could even do middleweight. Let's be honest, Errol Spence. He said it himself. So. You could be looking down the road at even like a super fight with Canelo. If Canelo comes back down after the Plant fight, you just don't know, do you? But no. I don't think Spence gets much other than a paycheck. I don't think Spence gets much out of the Pacquiao fight.
And just to finish, I think just so I don't have a lot of angry Pacquiao fans, of course.
We want you gone.
I think he's a legend. He'll retire a legend. It's just a bit of a tongue-in-cheek joke. I know. For Josh. It was an easy way to trigger him. It worked.
Not the first time I've had to backtrack on your opinion, Scott, so it's fine.
Yeah, Lee Wood, anyone?
Yeah. Love you, Carl. Anyway, let's finish there. Massive thanks for watching Between the Ropes TV again. We've got much more coming, more previews, more match reactions. So hit that subscribe button and we shall see you on the next one.
Just before we end it, next week we've obviously got the big Jake Paul fight, which I know Scott's got a lot of views on that one. Me and Ben might not actually talk during that one. We might just leave it to Scott. So thank you, guys.
See ya.